What's up, guys? Welcome to Discuss The Expanse. This is our newest Discuss podcast. It was backed by popular demand. I had a lot of people when I did the Discuss Foundation podcast that said they wanted us to cover this one. It seems like a similar demographic, so glad we can finally get back to this one. My name is Nick. I'm a creator and contributor at Dis Media, which is we do like movie reviews, reactions, do a podcast network, obviously. I'm covering Discuss Hawkeye as well, so if you guys are watching the MCU show currently, make sure to go check that out here. But I am extremely honored to be guested here by my co-host, Danny. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Super excited to be doing this with you for season 6 of The Expanse. I do reviews as well. You can find me on YouTube at Fate of the Internet. My Instagram is at Danny Ain't Me. And you can see my reviews for seasons 1 through 4. And then I did season 5 episodically last year. So really enjoyed it. Really loved it. Super excited to talk about The Expanse with you this season. Really exciting stuff.
Just for an overview of what you guys can expect this season, we generally start the podcast off with what we thought kind of generally on the episode as far as our feelings and where we think it ranks with the other episodes in the season. And then we go into more of an in-depth scene-by-scene recap where we kind of break down things and go into a little more specifically about kind of likes and dislikes and character arcs and stuff like that going through the episode there. And then lastly, we give some fun hot takes, predictions, any kind of stuff that we have about where we think the show is going to be going in the future here. Before we kick it over and kind of get into our general thoughts here, I did want to go over 2 kind of pieces of news because I feel like they just happened recently, so I feel like we should probably say something. I can bring up the first one that I was really excited about. We're filming this on a Friday. Yesterday was the Game Awards, and they dropped the trailer for a Telltale game starring Kamina Drummer, which I think is really cool. I've always been a big fan of the Telltale games. I love kind of like narrative games like that, like stuff where you kind of choose your own adventure novels, virtual. So I was really excited that Telltale's coming back and that they chose The Expanse as an IP to select for that. It's going to be really cool. I just wanted to quickly read a synopsis for that here. It says, in the near future, on the outskirts of the asteroid belt, a bloody mutiny breaks loose on the Artemis. You take the role of Exo Kamina Drummer, where your choices determine the fate of the ship. What will you do with the truth, Boss Mang? So it definitely looks really interesting, so it's going to be really fun to see that there. And then Danny, did you want to tell them about the news from the book side of things?
Yeah, so they just released the final book in the series of 9, and I'm really excited to read it. This was, I believe, last week, maybe just over a week ago, that it came out. And to prevent any kind of spoilers on here, I won't even tell you guys the title of the book.
Okay.
But it definitely gives you a full circle moment. I'll say that. And with just how this series has taken hold of people from the last decade, James S.A. Corey, this combination of authors. I'm excited to see how they finish it up and just what this might mean for The Expanse beyond season 6 potentially. So lots of good stuff. Check it out. The books are good, and I'm excited to see how they conclude it.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into our general feelings on the episode. We did check out episode 1. Can you tell us what the title, the director, and writer for episode 1 are?
Yeah, so episode 601 is called Strange Dogs, and it was written by Noreen Shankar, and it was directed by Breck Eisner. And I also believe that Strange Dogs is the title of one of the novellas that they wrote, so one of the little side stories that James S.A. Corey wrote for the Expanse world. So
awesome.
That's pretty cool.
All right, awesome. Well, as far as general thoughts here, like kind of just coming off of watching the episode, what were your thoughts on the episode? And we can't really rank it against anything else, but did you think it was kind of a fitting start to the season? And did they kind of stick it, for you? Did it go well?
Yeah. So what's really interesting about it, and this may have to do with like the novella and kind of what they're setting up with this Laconia idea, and we'll go more into detail with that, of course. I started off and I was like, oh, what's going on here? I was kind of like, I'm in a weird situation. I'm not quite sure what to make of what we're looking at. We've got some alien life here. And I was like, are we going to dive into that? and so that part was a little disarming, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that for the rest of the season. However, I'm a massive fan of Marco Inaros, and so seeing the repercussions of the rocks, and that he's been throwing rocks for the last 6 months, and Earth is trying to do that, all of that stuff really worked well for me. I liked the episode. I liked some of the angst that was there in the wake of Alex's untimely demise. And I'd say the only little struggle that I had with the episode was Philip, and we'll kind of get into Philip a little bit more later. But overall, I thought it was a decent start to the season, and I'm looking forward to what they have to do. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I felt very similarly about it as far as kind of the things. Maybe we'll talk about the Philip stuff later as well, but I think the main thing I noticed was how kind of tonally it's more somber, right? At least for this episode was, and that feels fitting after how much carnage and chaos happened last season, with everything that went on there, especially like you said with Alex's untimely passing as well. So I felt the weight of all that stuff that happened last season, and I think that's kind of a sign of good writing, where it's like these things felt very consequential in this episode. Everyone kind of felt like they're just beaten down, and everything is just like very bleak. So I definitely felt a tonal shift in the show, in the first season here, and I'm thinking that's probably going to continue, and then hopefully start to pick up and kind of brighten towards the end of it. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they just kind of go dark the whole season, but we'll have to see. But I definitely enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good start. It had a lot of the stuff you want to see in an Expanse episode in there. So yeah, I'm really excited to see where the season goes from here. But guys, we're gonna go ahead and jump into our scene by scene recap here. Go a little more in depth. So the show kind of starts out. We see a lush, kind of jungle world, that seems very alien to us in the Expanse, and there's this little girl, and she's kind of seeing all these different aliens. I love aliens in these kind of things, because I'm like a xenobiology nerd, so I like to see like how all of that, how they design them and stuff, and how the maybe the climate or the properties of the planet that they're on kind of inform their evolution and all. Like I think that stuff's kind of cool. So I like when they're well thought out like that. I thought the CGI was really strong in the scene, for this one as well. I thought it's a very kind of small set, so that probably helped with budget as well. But I thought the CGI was really good, and she's just kind of walking around and hanging out with these alien animals on this planet that we're not sure like where it's from. She sees like a kind of, she calls it a dog in the bushes. Goes over to it, and one of the birds that's there starts kind of flapping, and she grabs it and runs off. And then we get this amazing kind of crane shot up, where they show this really awesome zoom out shot of everything, and they show that we're in Laconia, and it shows that big structure, that proto molecule structure in the sky. What were your thoughts of this as far as the first scene in the show and kind of setting that up? And yeah, what did you think about the scene overall?
Yeah, as a setup scene, I thought it was strong because it brought that alien vibe back to the forefront. Season 5 was a really grounded character season. I felt like it was very
Mm-hmm.
much about those interpersonal relationships and how that played a role in things. And so this gives me the feeling of that payoff from the end of season 5, where we see whatever that was go through the MCRN ship as they were headed towards Laconia. And so following back up on that, it's like, okay, cool. So this is an alien planet. We know that there are people there who have started to settle, and they're starting to figure out what this world is about. And I think the reason why that was strong for me as a opener was because it reminds us that, hey, this whole proto molecule storyline that the show started out on, we haven't forgotten about it, and there is going to be a payoff for it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that be the reintroduction in your final season is something that makes me believe that's at least something that we are going to get some sort of payoff for. Obviously, there's 3 more books past the one that this season is adapting, but I liked it. I thought it was strong, and of course, the proto molecule is that element of science fantasy that kind of hooks you as an underlying theme or or storyline throughout the Expanse. So I liked it. I thought it was a strong scene, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious to see how they're going to play that out.
The show goes into the intro sequence, which was really refreshing to hear after all this time. It was cool just getting the intro sequence back. It seemed to be spliced with more information about kind of showing the attacks and the and all that kind of stuff throughout the intro sequence, and then the episode opens after the intro with kind of an kind of a newsreel of the kind of catching us up on the geopolitics of the time at, that come into it. So it looks like, obviously, it's showing the devastation on Earth, all the different hits and what they're kind of dealing with on Earth. It shows that the belt stations have all kind of rallied around Marco, so the entire belt is kind of unified around Marco, aside from maybe some small factions that may rear up later, specifically Drummer and stuff as well. But it seems like all of the big stations have rallied around Marco, and yeah, and they all control the ring gates and stuff as well here. And then it goes to Earth, and we get our first shot at Avasarala, and she is now the Madam Secretary of the UN, and she's taking stock of a dying biosphere, what it seems like. So it seems like the Earth is really taking a beating from all these rocks that are being thrown from the OPA and Marco Inaros, or the Free Navy, I'm sorry, Marco Inaros. And she says the biosphere is dying, and that they're really kind of undermanned. They're trying to build warships as fast as possible to try to combat that there. What do you think of the whole newsreel footage, and then also the scene with Bobby and Avasarala, and kind of the knowledge that Earth is taking a huge hit as far as its longevity and its biosphere? That's what she's saying.
So fun fact about me, I am a sucker for news updates in the beginning of movies to set you up for what's happening. And knowing that there is a 6-month time skip between the end of season 5 and the start of season 6, I loved seeing that kind of stuff, because the idea that there have essentially been 6 months of these space-driven terrorist attacks, and how the world is trying to respond. That moment where it's like Rossi joins the fight, I was hyped, because I was like, all right, cool. So we've got the Rossi crew, and they're in there. It was like a smash opening. It just completely kind of got me hyped for the season.
Yeah.
I like that kind of thing. I'm a sucker for it. It just works every time.
It's a great job of setting the table. It's just like the season starting, and this is a really efficient way for us to say, this is the chessboard here, and these are where the pieces are right now, and this is kind of like where everything stacks up, and then all of a sudden we're into the episode, and we can start. It's a really efficient way of doing that.
And Avasarala is one of my favorite characters on the show, and I love her and Bobby's relationship. And for her to be in the Mediterranean and have there be snow there, and have it be like a nuclear winter, I believe she says, it's devastating. It shows you what's going on, and it makes me wonder, is Earth going to be habitable after all of this? Are they going to have to go through the ring gates at some point, because Earth can't sustain life anymore because of what Marco Inaros has done? So it was an effective scene for me when it comes to setting the playing field of the devastation, because we really only got like the after effects during season 5, when we saw like Clarissa and Amos kind of going through as they were trekking to try and get back to Luna, but seeing how it's affected Earth on the long term, yeah, I was all about that.
Yeah, it's really heavy. It's just like in 6 months, like all the damage that was done. Like she was saying that it felt like it was a nuclear winter and stuff as well. So it's a really dire straits for the Earth after everything that happened in the last episode, and I guess these past 6 months they've just been getting rocks hurled at them constantly. So it'll be interesting to see how they combat that and figure out how to stop that there. It cuts from that scene too. We jump right into a Rossi firefight, which was cool to see. It's like it was fun to see that after all the time there. We jump right into some Rocinante action, and they are. Looks like they're fighting a rogue Free Navy ship. I don't know if it's rogue, but they're fighting like a singular Free Navy ship around an asteroid. It gets a little hairy, but they end up getting that ship out, and then they start wondering why it's kind of circling this asteroid, like what it's doing out there. So they decide to start scanning it, and there's kind of some character stuff where Amos is having to go patch the ship up. I really liked the shot of him going out on the Rossi and then walking around it. I thought that was really cool. I love when they take I love when sci-fi shows lean into like the banality of like life on a ship. You know what I mean? Like anytime a sci-fi show kind of slows things down and kind of showcases more like um more conventionally boring things in other shows, like what it would just kind of be like a routine thing. It just makes the world feel so much richer to me. So I love when they do that, when they're showing like Clarissa Mao and Amos kind of walking around the ship and fixing stuff and talking about kind of those nuts and bolts things, and the show taking the time to kind of let them do that and let them talk about that stuff. I think that really adds to like the world building of everything.
To that point, I'm also a fan of that, and I love patching up the Rossi because it makes the Rossi feel like a character
Hmm.
that needs to get some first aid as well, especially after a battle. And so I like those little moments.
Yeah, and it showcases like the prop departments and all the stuff that work on the show, and they make so much cool stuff and really thoughtful the way things interact with each other. And you know, obviously, I think everyone, it's kind of a trope of this show to say it's one of the most scientifically accurate shows, but everything is just so well thought out as far as like how things are designed and how the environments are designed and how the tools that they use work and all that kind of stuff. It all has a lot of thought behind it, which is really cool. They send a drone out to the asteroid and find that there's a drive on the asteroid. So obviously they're taking like ship drives, they're sticking it to the asteroid, and then they're setting them off and firing them towards Earth, which I think that explains where all these rocks are coming from. So once they kind of come to that realization, we snap over to Ceres. This is our first time with Ceres here. We get introduced to Philip, who's going through some things. He's lashing out in particular ways, and we get Philip and Marco Inaros. You said you really liked Inaros. I do too. He's one of my favorite characters as far as the new characters are concerned. I think the actor Keon Alexander that plays him is like he does such a fantastic job. He's got such charisma and gravitas and really commands attention on screen. I think he's one of my favorite new performers. I like the main three on the Rossi, but he really like stands toe to toe with all of them in every scene that he's in. So I think he does a really good job. But it introduces Ceres, and Marco is talking, and this is really setting up that the belt is obviously stronger than ever, but they are really stretched thin with resources. So as he's talking to her, and this was something they touched on late last season when they were saying like, how are we going to feed and feed everybody and get enough water for everyone without Earth and Mars, without their help. Now they are trying to build out the facilities so that they can do that for their people, but they're obviously stretched extremely thin. And then it's also setting up another thing I noticed, which is that Marco is not very he's not a good fit for like this kind of leadership. He's a rebel with nothing to rebel against right now. You know what I mean? So he's having an identity crisis as this leader, where he's kind of a fighter, so he's not really fit for this kind of role. But what did you think about this scene with Philip and them at the dinner table, and then also the past scene with the asteroid, and kind of finding out about the drives and how they're kicking rocks toward Earth?
Yeah, so with the drive on the asteroid, I really like that scene for two main reasons. The first one is it helped to establish Naomi as worrying about losing more people.
Hmm.
Alex's death is obviously haunting her, and so when Jim was down there, and she was just like, you need to be careful, you need to be careful. I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna have some issues this season, especially after everything she's been through. So I like that, and then I also liked it because my thought process was, how is he going to keep launching rocks? Like, I knew he had the long-term plan from season 5, but I was like, he's been doing this nonstop. How is this man knocking this out? And so the concept of, oh, they're just like basically hot installing these drives and figure out how to fire them. I thought that was a really cool attack to do from basically his guerrilla warfare tactics
Hmm.
in space are unparalleled right now,
Yeah.
and I'm digging that hardcore. But when it comes to being on series, that scene triggered me for one reason specifically. Dawes is dead.
Hmm.
Dawes
Yeah.
is dead. And I was like, no, no. Because I really
Yeah.
like that character. And I was curious to see how these two charismatic individuals are going to interact.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
That would have been a really cool scene. Dawes and Inaros, going at it or whatever. I think, you know what I think? I think there was probably an intention to do that. I honestly, it probably came down to Jared Harris is such a busy actor now. Like he's in everything, and
Yeah.
I feel like they probably couldn't get him back, and they were like, we just gotta, we gotta. That's what I feel like it probably was, because it does feel like a weird. It feels like him dying off screen just kind of doesn't feel as like I don't know, it doesn't feel as consequential or satisfying, I guess. So yeah, that was a tough blow. I don't know if you noticed something too. Series looks different, right? If you remember like season one and stuff like that with when they were on series and everything, um, it looked a lot more kind of like diverse as far as like different industries and like a lot of different stuff. It felt a lot more like a world, and this feels like it feels like a warehouse. You know what I mean? It feels extremely industrial, which maybe makes sense if it's kind of being used as like a military operation now. But yeah, I just noticed how kind of different series looks, and it looks very kind of sparse and militaristic and industrial and stuff. Did you notice any like visual differences with series station from what we've seen before?
Yeah, the main thing for me with how series looked in season 6 as opposed to some of the earlier seasons was that it just felt that Marco's influence there,
Mm,
and whole, hey, this is going to be the home of the belt, for it not to feel very homely,
yeah.
was an irony that I enjoyed.
Hmm.
It did feel a little spacious. It did feel less, I'll say, grounded in making the Belters feel at home, and definitely more felt like a room wide enough for his ego.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, it felt very sparse, and yeah, that totally makes sense. We get introduced to a new character. His name's Yoan, from what it says here, but he's the kind of fast talking friend of Philip with the alligator skin vest, just the straight drip of the alligator skin alligator skin vest that he's very very proud of. And he's kind of Philip's partner in this hedonistic stuff that they're dealing with. So he's kind of his kind of partner for all that stuff. We get introduced to him, and what did you think of? So they're introducing Philip. He seems to be going through a phase, I guess would be a good way to put it. But he's dealing with some stuff that I think is revealed later on in the episode, as far as like maybe what's going on with him subconsciously. But what were your initial thoughts about his character introduction, and maybe what he's did you automatically think maybe he's dealing with some guilt and kind of lashing out in kind of a more destructive manner when you initially saw him?
Honestly, yeah, honestly, absolutely.
Hmm.
Philip has always been a man torn, a child torn between two views, whether it was his father's or his mother's, or his father's or his own. And when he made all those decisions in the previous seasons to do what his father taught him, and how that had boosted him up, the way that his father can rip him apart and build him back up so that he only believes that he was worth something to Marco, and then killing millions, being responsible for that.
Hmm.
Uh, he's a kid, and he's a kid becoming a man, and he's dealing with a lot of changes anyway. And so when you are this prince of the new free navy, and you can do anything that you want to do, and you're wrestling with that little bit of humanity that your mom had kind of instilled in you and reminded you of, there's going to be some conflict. There's going to be that internal turmoil that is reflected in external action. And so I knew that's kind of where they were going with it. I didn't
Hmm.
know if Philip was going to recognize that himself in this episode.
I think, like you said too, it comes down to like I think he didn't have agency. He's never had any kind of agency before. Anytime he was doing something in service of something his father was trying for, or he was kind of trying to fill a void that his mother left behind. He's constantly been in that state. So I think this whole phase is just him trying to assert himself and have some agency for stuff, and he's just doing it in a very kind of obnoxious way, I guess. I was wondering where they were going to go with it, if it was something where it was kind of guilt manifesting in that way, which they kind of reveal later in the episode there. But walking around the ship, there's a lot of the Belters just start chanting Marco's name, and he gives kind of a riveting speech about Ceres was always a home for Belters and was never meant for Mars or Earthers. They were just kind of visitors there. This was always our home, and kind of is rallying the troops there in Ceres. And another really stirring speech from the actor that plays Marco as well. I thought that was a really good scene. It goes to we're back on Drummer's ship. So we're back with half of the Polyfam here. So they are. It looks like they're trying to scavenge. So they're trying to scavenge a. They're trying to ambush a scavenging ship that's coming through, and it does not go well. There's the character Michio. I think is she a new character or was she in the last season?
She was in the last season. I believe
Okay.
she was the one responsible for killing Carl when during that whole coup towards the
Okay.
end of the season.
Okay, yeah. So she's she I was this was weird to me, but she didn't she all she had to do was push a button. I remember thinking like, wow, like and it's a big button too. I remember looking at it like it's a really big button there, but uh they're trying to ambush attack the scavenging ship that's come in, and essentially they're acting as pirates trying to get munitions, food, and rations from ships now because they really don't have a friend in the system anymore. Like they're belters, so they can't go to Earth or Mars for assistance, and because they've turned their backs on Inaros, they have no nation here, so they have no assistance. But yeah, they're trying to shoot the ship, and then Michio pushes the wrong button, and it almost gets them killed. They get away. The ship explodes behind them, and they're able to get away kind of scot free there. What did you think about this scene, the whole action sequence there, and then kind of Kamina Drummer's introduction in this season, and where do you what do you think they're setting up for her character in the season here?
Yeah, I always love space combat and the Expanse. The concept of pirates is always a fun one to visit. I was so mad at Michio. I was like, I understand you're going through something, but it is one button. It is one button.
And she
What
was
are
right. She was right there, like right next to it, holding it. It's like, wait, how do you mess this up? Like,
man? I was like, all right, girl, you need to go.
yeah.
Uh, but I love Drummer. I love Drummer a
Hmm.
lot. She's another one of my favorites on the show. And it was so difficult to watch last season as she was just pushed into basically uselessness when Carl was running the ship for Marco. And to see Drummer taking control again, I think was good, especially because the Poly fam did split. And
Hmm.
so she had to become who she was meant to be, but it was after a loss. And so I'm hoping to see a little bit more assertiveness from Drummer
Hmm.
this season because she's not a character who just sits down. She's got fire, she's got spice to her, and I want to see her progress with that. And I'm hoping this will be a return to form for her, and kind of with what ends up happening and what she suggests for Michio. I think that might be the Drummer that we're getting this season.
Yeah, I think she's always been so principled and kind of dealing with that and wanting her to be more assertive, but at the same time realizing how much she's already lost, like she says in the episode as well, and how that kind of that inner conflict of I need to be the captain of the ship, but I'm trying to keep a family together is going to be a fun kind of tension for them to play with throughout the season here. I also think they're setting up a cool parallel between I think Kamina and Naomi are going to have very kind of similar arcs. They've both just lost so much in this last season with their family and then their nation, or not their nation, but their family and like their people. They're kind of ostracized from their own people, and then with Naomi losing her friend, I forget the guy's name, but her really good friend on when she jumped out of the ship in last season, and then losing Alex and kind of being terrified of losing anybody else. I think they're both very in similar emotional positions right now, so it's going to be cool to see if they kind of mirror each other throughout the season as well. Um, let's see. So we go back to Naomi and Holden. They are investigating the drive on the asteroid, and there's kind of it's kind of a crudely set trap that the Belters are doing to send these asteroids to Earth. And Holden goes to the box to try to disarm it, and he ends up triggering it there. A couple notes I had about this scene where I really like the POV shots that they do and like the helmets and stuff as he's like floating down to the surface, and really take a lot of care and time to show those kind of, like I said, more kind of banal shots. They're not as sexy and not as like perfectly composed shots from a distance. It's very gritty and blue collar, and I think that's been kind of that's kind of been a feeling that the show has perpetuated for its entire run, and I think that's what a lot of people like. And it's even accentuated more here when the drive starts going, and even in this future, it's still completely viable to just hit shit and make it work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No matter how intricate or like complex all of this technology is, if you just take a wrench to something enough times, it's gonna work. You know,
Yeah.
it's gonna not
And
work. Whatever you're trying to get it to do. So I thought that was a really good scene there. I liked the visual of the ticking time clock in this one, of like, oh, this is things about to go off. Was that wrench being magnetized to the thing faster and faster? I thought that was a really cool visual way of showing. Essentially, like in most movies, it would just be a ticking clock with a bomb on it, you know. But in this one, I like the way they kind of visualize that by having the wrench go there. And then Naomi, once it starts going up, is telling him she's terrified to lose anybody, so she's telling him to just get away. And he's making the choice like, I didn't really have much time, so I he banged it and got it to stop there. Did you have any thoughts about that scene at all? With that whole interaction between Holden and Naomi, and the whole scene of him going down and trying to defuse that drive.
Yeah. So I also geeked out about the way that they showed the UI,
Mm-hmm.
because the little detail was they were treating it like you were Holden, and you could see like Holden's reflection just faintly in the UI. And so that was just like a
Yeah, I
little
love
detail
that. Yeah.
that I was a fan of. I thought that was cool. But what I enjoyed about that Naomi Holden scene, as he was, trying to bang this thing and get rid of the box, was you got to understand the underlying tension that had been there in that relationship for the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like Naomi, everything that she did, they got her back. They, she was dealing with the death of Alex and whatnot. And so then you take the man that she loves, puts him out on this place. There's I believe Marco has a bounty on them and Drummer. So you put all that together, and then he's out here banging on this thing that could kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she's just got a lot going on, and he, being Holden, is gonna try and do the hero thing and just fix this thing anyway, or get rid of this thing anyway. And so I thought the scene was true to both characters, and felt like a microcosm of probably what their relationship has been like for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's setting up something for the entire crew too. I think the entire crew is just tired, and they're really sick of these constant scrapes with death. You know what I mean? They just feel like the entire crew just feels like they're over it, and they're just like, I'm sick of being in these situations constantly. And I like that the show is leaning into that and saying like, yeah, they've been through so since season one, they've just been in this constant state of like, we're almost about to die or we're trying to save something, and you can finally see it really start to wear on them, where they're just like, I'm so tired of this, like I'm so tired of like being in these situations. So I thought that was really well represented there. The scene goes to they're setting up a tense dynamic between Clarissa Mao and Naomi. Specifically, I'm not sure if Holden's included in that. They haven't really showed an interaction between Clarissa and Holden either, but I did notice that early in the episode, it seemed like Amos was the only one talking to her. So I really started feeling that, like, I started feeling that kind of tension immediately. But yeah, it kind of explodes where I think Naomi feels like Amos is trying to replace Alice with Clarissa, and doesn't trust her at all, which is kind of understandable. I kind of get that actually, that you wouldn't trust her there. And then Amos is trying to fight for her and say she's a different person, what they've been through, and that she deserves a second chance. So it seems like that's going to be a big sticking point in the crew, and a big kind of point of tension on the Rocinante is Clarissa kind of weaving in with the crew and trying to find her space, find her place, and trying to find how to interact with Naomi and Holden there. The one other note I had about the scene too was obviously Amos and Naomi have a standoff. I think what I love about the show is that she's the only person that can talk to him like that. You know what I mean? And like he doesn't blow up about it. It's just like there's such an intense respect that they can talk to each other in that manner. And they I just remember thinking like anybody else says that to Amos and it's not going well. You know what I mean? She's like the one person in the show. She's the one person in the show can get away with kind of yelling and talking to him like that. So I thought that was a really interesting point there.
The Clarissa Mao interaction with Naomi, you can tell that Clarissa understands her, we'll just call it a complex history,
Hmm.
with the Rocinante crew. And with with the way that they allowed her to stay on there because of Amos, you can kind of see that they're like, okay, Amos wants to do this, so we'll do it because it's Amos. But Naomi dealing with what she probably feels like is guilt from Alex dying because he rescued her and stroked out while he was rescuing her.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have the fourth member of their crew be this person who tried to kill Holden, there's a lot of dynamic there, and
Yeah,
she didn't experience Clarissa Mao's cross country
exactly.
adventure with Amos, and so what reason would she have to trust? Although 6 months is a long time, so if she hadn't been trying this entire time, she's gonna be set in her ways.
Mm-hmm.
So like you, I get it. I absolutely get it. And I think part of that relationship that she has with Amos, the only reason she's even putting up with Clarissa being there is because of that close knit relationship. So I think it's interesting because it works both ways.
Yeah, if you just put yourself in her shoes for a second, it's like if you can imagine going through the loss that she's already gone through, where she's and her kind of showing how scared she was with Holden being in that situation, with where the drive almost went off, and how scared she was to potentially lose someone else. You're living in close quarters with somebody that tried to kill Holden already, so it's like you can imagine the anxiety and kind of like dread that she's constantly probably dealing with, having this person that she doesn't trust on the ship, while they're kind of going through these things. And like I can imagine, like, if that's your living situation, that would obviously put a lot of stress on you as a person. So I think that's fitting she would feel that way. It goes to we're back to Drummer, and Drummer is talking with her second in command, Joseph. And he's telling her that Michio needs to go. She if you can't push a button, you have to get the exit. You know what I mean? They have to show you the exit door. If you had one job and your one job was to stick your finger on a bigger button than your finger, then you should probably dip out. So he's kind of telling her she needs to go. Drummer is saying we've already lost so much. She's trying to maintain her family, but she eventually does tell her that they're going to drop her off at a station and kind of keep her safe until it's all over. But I can definitely feel like these kind of captain decisions in lieu of her family are something that's going to bottle up in Drummer. I think that's going to happen in this season, where she's going to continue to kind of choose these logical, practical solutions over her family over and over again, and eventually that's going to have some kind of breaking point there. So definitely see that occurring in
Is
her
it
character there.
too early to make a prediction? Is it too early in this
Well,
to pick?
if you want to just make a mental note of it, once we get to the prediction phase, we can just go ahead and throw it in there, because
Okay.
I had one about Drummer as well. Um,
Okay.
Kind of an emotional scene where she has to say goodbye to them. Then we go back to series, and we get a scene where the two kind of young brash kids, Philip and Yoan, I think is his name, are kind of bragging about their terrorist exploits, and kind of trying to get in these girls' good side. In this scene, he starts talking about that he was part of the fight on the ring gates, and that Philip was obviously integral in the asteroids and the millions of people that died on Earth. And you can see that starts to kind of bother Philip as they're talking about it. It's just kind of establishing that a lot of these belters are really proud of what happened, and Philip is not. You can definitely tell these are kind of wearing on him. He doesn't feel like he's worthy of being called a hero, maybe, and he's lashing out about that. What do you think of those two scenes with as far as Drummer and her family and stuff, and then these kind of brash kids kind of bragging about being terrorists and stuff like that, and Philip's kind of internal turmoil about that.
Drummer's storyline, as she is trying to cut the umbilical cords and saying we'll pick you up later.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's a nerve wracking ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I worry for what that will mean for Drummer and her people over the next few episodes. That is for
Yeah.
sure. But it was something that needed to be said though, because Michio, whether or not she loves her family, she can't be there right now. She's struggling with like a
Mm-hmm.
PTSD, or she's shell shocked, and she can't. War isn't for her. Um, as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to the other guy whose name I can't remember. I want to say it's Joseph or something. But he was like, look, I can do this. So I like that scene. I liked what it set up. As for the Philip stuff, and Yoan, one, I like the little detail of him getting tattoos for like every attack that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were part of. I thought that was just like one of those details where I was like, yeah, it's kind of a jarhead type move,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where you would do that and have it as your exploit, especially if you're young and you feel like I am the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it makes sense that he would do that and use that to impress women. But I like that Philip, him leaving there, was him kind of snapping out of that dulling that he had, and recognizing like maybe I need to do something else because this isn't fun anymore. I can't distract myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, 'Cause now we're forced to talk about it when before I can just lean into all the stuff, all the physical stuff, whether it's women or drinking or whatever it's going to be. I can lean into that without worrying about how I
Yeah.
feel about things for real.
Yeah, these this episode, I wish we were big enough that I had like a BetterHelp sponsor, because this episode is chock full of people that could really use some therapy. You know what I mean? Like it feels like therapy would be a big boon for Naomi, Kamina, Philip. All of these people really need to get some things worked out, right? And Philip especially, like you said, he's snapping out of the numbing was a good way to put it, where he's constantly just using girls and drinks to kind of keep his mind off of what he did. And I think him having to kind of come to grips with that is when he really lashes out. It goes from that scene to we get Marco Inaros, and I think it's his general, that the kind of the woman that's his number two, that has like the eye tattoo.
Mhm.
I don't know if she's like his XO or like his general. I'm not really sure what her kind of position is, but that's what she seems to be there. She seems to be making pretty high end decisions for him behind the scenes, so she seems like maybe his number two. And
Mhm.
I believe she's telling him that they don't have enough rations to kind of feed everyone on Ceres, so they're gonna kind of screw over Ceres a little bit and kind of leave. She says you don't owe these people anything. That's what I remember from there. Is that was that your interpretation too? I don't know if I caught the dialogue 100% correctly on that one, but that's what it seemed to be.
Yeah, from what I was picking up on that scene, the food ration shortage was one of those things where it's like, hey, what are we gonna do? Are we going to make these rations smaller to give them out to people? Basically, setting up that there are some actual problems going on.
Hmm.
You, as the leader of this revolution, you're going to need to do that. And I actually have more thoughts on this as well, but I'm going to wait until the end when we talk
Into the
about
predictions. Yeah, it was another scene that kind of highlighted his kind of, I don't want to say ineptitude, but his kind of his indifference of this kind of position. It almost seems like he would rather leave this to someone else and then go like run the Navy ships. You know what I mean? But because he's such a symbolic leader for the belt, he can't do that. In that way, it kind of mirrors Avasarala, who's in the same kind of position where she's like a symbolic leader for the secretary, of the UN now. But that position comes with a lot less flexibility of like being able to actually do things that matter on the front lines. And I think they're both kind of feeling the weight of that. So I think they're kind of setting them up as foils in the season there, where they're both kind of on either sides of it, wishing that they were kind of on the front lines there. Um, it goes back to the Rocinante, where Naomi makes a discovery. Um, he says that the drive signature there, she was able to kind of triangulate a frequency that was used to activate it, and then she pinged that frequency off of other like when it was used previously, and they found a whole bunch of different rocks that have a lot of these same kind of drives connected to them. And then the signal that was giving those drives, that was providing the signal for those drives, seems to be a ship that was orbiting in a consistent orbit. So they found this spotter ship, I think is what he called it. I love they're setting the stage for a big ship showdown that I think is going to be really fun. I don't know if it's going to be late, like mid season, or it's going to be kind of the midpoint or something like that. But they're setting up the Rocinante versus the Azure Dragon, and that's going to be a pretty cool fight. It's what it seems like. So at least that seems like it's setting the stage for that. But yeah, there's this spotter ship that's essentially sending out these signals to these asteroids and shooting rocks at Earth. So if they're able to take out that spotter ship, they're able to heavily limit the amount of rocks being sent at Earth, which would kind of get the boot off of their neck so that they can maybe make a go of something after that. I thought that was a cool. Again, the show's been so grounded about the logic of how these things work, how these kind of machinations work between the foes and allies there. So I thought that was cool that there's a spotter ship and the way they do the drives and the asteroids. It all makes sense. Like you said, it's very elegant guerrilla warfare where it feels like they're it feels very highbrow and well thought out and all that kind of stuff. It goes back to Luna. We're on a ship probably orbiting Luna here, but Monica is the reporter that we've been seeing the past couple of seasons. She kind of lights into Avasarala, saying that I think the point of her conversation was there are colonists that are on these ring colonies, and that because he's guarding the ring gates, they have no communication with those people, and that they could be using them as like indentured servitude or something like that, and labor, and that she thinks that they should at least entertain the idea of a peace treaty with Marco, and Christian does not want anything to do with that. So she's not even thinking about a peace treaty at all. She wants him in a casket. So it's kind of setting that up and putting the thought in her ear, and she's getting the inception of like, maybe I should make some kind of peace with Marco, and she's kind of fighting it right now. What did you think about the scenes, those scenes there with them finding the spotter ship, and kind of that plan that they're going to go take out that spotter ship in the Azure Dragon showdown, and then also about the idea of maybe a possible peace treaty, and do you think that's something that might kind of rear its head later in the season?
So I love that whole spottership concept.
Mm-hmm.
It makes perfect sense to me that you're essentially sending out, especially knowing that Marco has access to Martian stealth tech, the idea that there's a ship running dark in an orbit so that when they see a hole in Earth's defenses, they can just launch rocks,
Mm-hmm.
just without Earth figuring out how they're doing it. I thought that was genius, and the idea that the Rossi is gonna go and have a little dogfight with them is
Mm-hmm.
very exciting. I think that's probably another part of the reason why we started the show with two mechanics here with Clarissa and Amos and talking about patching up the Rossi, because I could see that
It's
going
gonna be a
down
lot of holes.
exactly, a lot of holes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm definitely hyped for that. And then the Officer All stuff, honestly, I think just fired on all cylinders in this episode, just in general. But I really like the scene for a couple of reasons. One, Monica, I like her as a character. She's tenacious. She doesn't give up. She's willing to push the buttons as a reporter. But she had an amazing line. As a writer, I love this line where she was like, she talks to Bobby. She's like, "Can you remind her that she has constituents and not subjects?"
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Ooh,
fuck.
yeah.
That was a good line. That was a good line.
Yeah.
And I like that challenge. And when it comes to peace treaty, that idea of could that happen with Marco? I don't know if it can happen with Marco because of his pride.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see a situation where the people are Marco's Free Navy are starting to maybe get a little anxious because food's running short
Right.
and water's not great, and Earth has it, and Christian could potentially offer resources for a truce. Like there is that political element that could come
Mm-hmm.
into play. And with Christian being such a hothead sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if her refusal is going to have some consequences.
Yeah, I think it's probably definitely, maybe we can save it for predictions, but I think the peace treaty thing is going to be a bigger plot point as the show goes on. I think it's going to be a point of pressure on both sides, really, like you said. So I think that's definitely gonna kind of rear its head later on. It goes from that scene. We're going back to Philip. Philip is kind of at the height of his kind of despair and how he's kind of dealing with his guilt here. He goes back to the bar where he was kind of brushed aside by the bartender there and starts to kind of hit on her again. When she denies his advances, he gets very angry and throws a shot glass at her. And then his friend Yoan comes in clutch and tries to kind of walk him back to his apartment, and they end up getting in a scuffle, and he shoots him kind of unprovoked. I mean, he gets punched, but he just kind of pulls a gun and shoots him. It's interesting, and maybe we can talk about that in predictions too, as far as like what are going to be the ramifications of this. I don't even know if there's going to be any because of who he is. But so, in my opinion, the shooting that guy was I need some atonement. He's almost trying to get punished. You know what I mean? So I feel like maybe that was a kind of brash move, but it was a move of like I need to know that there are consequences to actions, you know? So I think that might be something that they kind of address in the next episodes is maybe he gets off and then he gets even more mad because he did this thing obviously and he needs to atone for it and kind of not having consequences is going to kind of drive him crazy. I think might be something they kind of bring up with him later in the season there. It goes from there right to Luna. We have Christian Avasarala who is floating. I did like the contrast between maybe her dealing with the weight of leadership and her kind of feeling comfort and just kind of floating without, she even says like not being weighed down by the world, but you can tell that there's a lot of, she's dealing with a lot of pressure. And this was kind of a visual way of how she kind of maybe deals with that therapeutically. And then Bobby comes in. She tells Bobby that she's doing a performance review and that she really hates her job. They both hate their job from what they're saying there. And then I think Christian is setting up that she wants to send I think she's setting up that she wants to send Bobby with the Rocinante to investigate this spotter ship because she knows that Bobby can be a lot more use in that kind of capacity than what she's doing now. He gives a speech at the end saying that they really need to make a bold move if they want to kind of regain hope and try to get their footing and kind of get back into this fight because right now they're kind of suffocating. So she kind of makes a speech about that they really need to make a big move and make something great happen, and she seems to have an idea of what that is. What do you think of those two scenes? Those last two scenes of the episode there. The scene with Philip at the bar, and then Avasarala kind of giving her speech and floating in the office and stuff. Did you have any thoughts about those?
Yeah, Philip is a man unraveling,
Yeah.
and he is just going off of whatever pops into his head right at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
He decides he wants the bartender to distract him. Then he's gonna do that. When she kind of rebuffs him, he throws a drink and is like, "Do you know who I am? I'm the son of what's
I'm
his
a
name?
hero. Yeah.
He's throwing anything out there just to not feel something because
Mm-hmm.
he's feeling stuff and he hates that he's feeling stuff. And so then you have his friend, and when he shoots his friend, honestly, like maybe I should have seen it coming, but it caught me off guard pretty heavily. I think his friends boasting and whatnot was going to be something that he was going to eventually like rebuff and kind of call out like what if we are wrong? This
Mm-hmm.
stuff that we're so proud of, like are we gonna have a conversation about that? And then he
Yeah.
shoots, and I was like, well, there he goes. At this point, if he's shooting his friend that he was close to, uh, there's no way that he's thinking this stuff through.
Yeah.
He's going off of pure instinct, and so he leaves. The end scene, I really loved. And I think this kind of borders prediction, but I would love to see Bobby flying the Rocinante.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's the natural choice to replace Alex over there. And so the performance review line was really funny, really charming. But they're both right. They're
Yeah.
both right. And for Avasarala to understand the nature of the person that she asked to be her side person, was good. It showed that she's a different Avasarala than she was at the beginning of the show when she used to just hang belters under gravity for
Yeah.
torture. She's different. She's thinking about the consequences. She's thinking, where can I put my best people so that we can get this under control? So I'm glad to see an Avasarala who is more intelligent politically this time around, especially considering all the loss that she's experienced.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into some quick predictions here. I had a couple questions, so I'm going to start you off. I'm going to try to get a prediction out of you on this one. What is it that you think Avarala has in mind? Do you have any ideas as to what her plan may be? I kind of drew a blank, so I didn't know if maybe you had any idea of kind of what she might be planning that she says is going to be this big bold move that she's going to do.
So my prediction is that it has to do with the ring gates,
Mm-hmm.
because Marco, he owns so much territory with the Belters, so much disparate area, that when they lost their backup at the ring gate at the end of season 5,
Mhm.
that's when they lost their power. So Earth has been on their back foot for the last however many months. And so the spotter ship concept, Australia getting rid of Marco's ability to hit them is a good first step, but she's gonna have to get control. She needs leverage again.
Yeah.
And so the idea of her doing something near the ring gates to basically be on the other side, maybe do a pincer situation, maybe we got a tenant situation going on.
Hmm.
I could see something like that to try and crush those forces. But she needs to get off her back foot and start going strong.
Yeah, I think leverage is a good is definitely the way that she wants to go. I think what it may manifest in, and not the ring gates though, is once they take out the spotter ship, she may take a play where she's doing a targeted attack on those agriculture places where their food resources and stuff are, because if those start going in the wrong direction, then he has really no choice but to ask for their assistance. So if leverage is what they're looking for, it feels like that would be the play, is taking out those kind of resource depots that they're trying to build up for the belt. So that might be what she's alluding to there. The other question I had is, where's Bull? Because I felt like in the last season they were setting him up to be kind of Alex's. They even showed him like drinking the coffee with the Alex's mug and stuff. And I thought, oh, maybe he's going to be the new pilot for the thing. And we didn't even see him in this episode. So what do you think's going on with him?
I don't know. That's tough because he did have an interesting kind of relationship with Holden in season 5, and so it would have he would have made a great pilot there. Bull is someone who doesn't trust Belters at all. So
Hmm.
I could see a scenario where during that 6 month period of time, he split off, running his own ship. Like,
Yeah.
Holden, you run your ship the way you want to. I'm gonna run mine,
Right.
and I'm gonna take out some of these Belters,
All right.
and see what happens.
Yeah. So what are your predictions here? So I have like two that I can go over there. What was your prediction regarding Kamina? Because I think I can start there too.
I don't know if Drummer's gonna make it.
Yeah.
I I the idea of her leaving her family there and
Hmm.
saying, "Oh, yeah, we'll come back for you." Um, either where she leaves them, they're all going to die and she's alone.
Yeah.
Um, or as a continued cosmic retribution for the times that she failed to get rid of Marco when she should have, whether it
Hmm.
was spacing him or listening to him and letting Carl run her ship for season 5. Uh, that karma is going to catch up with her, and I could see her going out in a blaze of glory. She's had a lot of close calls where I thought she was done, and I could see getting rid of Marco, trying to make that right as one of her last moments. So
Yeah.
I would be heavily surprised if she makes it through the end of the season.
Yeah, I think we could, given what my prediction is, I think they could both be right potentially. So I think my prediction was that I think Kamina is going to have to square off against the other family that she had. So they may have joined on Marco, and I think she's going to be pitted against them in some way. And it makes sense that if she is kind of put in that really hard position, that she maybe sacrifices herself to avoid having to have war between these, especially because they're setting that up in this episode where she's saying like I can't lose more family members, and kind of giving Michio up to the from the ship. So it could potentially be a situation where maybe she's pitted in a situation where she has to choose between one or the other, and she decides to just choose her to take herself, and then do that way. So I could definitely see that being like kind of a swan song for her in that instance. But to your point about a character that I don't think is going to make it out of the season, I don't think there's a universe where at the end of season 6, Philip's alive, because I think like with obviously it's Naomi's son, and they seem to be setting up that maybe there's some festering humanity in him that's lashing out in this way, and it's making him not click with the Belters there. So he's dealing with some potential humanity that might have been instilled in him by his mother, and it seems like they're setting up a very long redemption arc with the way that this is starting with him shooting the guy at the bar and going through these scenes. And given that he coded the asteroids in stealth tech, and it resulted in millions of people dying. I don't see a way where his redemption arc doesn't end with him making some kind of sacrifice of his life at the end to try to change something. I don't see him like surviving. I don't think like the show could justify him getting away with what happened on Earth. You know what I mean? And his role in it. So that would probably be my bold predictions. And I don't think Philip makes it out. I think he's probably going to have a big redemption arc, and he's going to be very integral in however this maybe situates going forward. But I think it's going to be a sacrifice that he has to make there.
Maybe this is just the pessimistic writer in me. I could see a scenario where Philip decides that his mother is right, and I don't know if he helps her as some last ditch effort, but I could see a scenario where Marco is the one who pulls the trigger on Philip, because he feels like his son abandoned their shared ideals and he's no longer his son.
Yeah.
And whether that's him getting spaced or Marco literally pulling a trigger on his son, I could see that scenario playing out very, very truly.
Yeah.
Especially with how abusive Marco has been.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And how kind of how detached he's been from relationships. He's very just like, this is what it is. He doesn't really care if they're related or how kind of history they've had together. So yeah, I could definitely see that happening as well. I think we're gonna get some backstory on Holden this season, because last season was really fleshing out Naomi's backstory with her family and Belter family, as well as Amos. But we didn't get much about Holden, about his stuff there. And they did make not a throwaway line, but they did make a small line towards the end of last season that his family had survived and gotten to Luna. So I think they're gonna kind of showcase maybe some in this season, and maybe we'll get some backstory on Holden, maybe a little fleshed out more. My other prediction was, I think the season's going to end open-ended. So my hot prediction is I think it's going to be pretty open-ended, because I think they're fairly confident that they're going to get a movie potentially, to kind of tie these things up. And I don't think it's going to end like a series finale. I think it's going to end with some loose strings there, and hopes that maybe they can turn something else into that there. Did you have any other big predictions?
My final prediction is honestly what you just said about the open-ended. When I watched this opening and I saw there were 6 episodes in the season, I said to myself, I foresee a situation where this girl on Laconia and her storyline is something that is going to launch us into a series of movies. Because I think we'll see the end of the Marco Inaros scenario, and I think we'll see the death of Philip. But I do not think that some of the stuff that we have set up specifically with the proto-molecule, I don't see that being resolved this season. I don't, but I see them leading us like, hey, there's more story to tell. That's kind of what
Yeah, if they were to wrap it up with Marco Inaros and the proto-molecule, they would have to wrap up the Marco Inaros thing like in 4 episodes or 3 episodes. And it doesn't feel like that's going to be the case. And then they would have to dedicate the last couple episodes to kind of like the big threat, which is the proto-molecule and everything that's going on Laconia there. So yeah, I think the same thing too. It just seems like they would have to tie up the Marco stuff and then hit the proto-molecule stuff. And I don't think they have the runway to kind of do that in the season. So it seems like that's probably going to be the case there. But yeah, that was season 6, episode 1, Strange Dogs. I had a lot of fun with this one here. Guys, we are going to be back here next week, same time, covering episode 2. And if you guys want to follow us, I do have Danny's stuff linked in the description below. You can go to thedismedia.com where you can see my movie reviews and other podcasts. If you guys are watching the MCU show Hawkeye, you can definitely come and have discussions with us on that show. We're having a lot of fun doing that and kind of partaking in the Christmas traditions there. But that's going to wrap it up for us here. I can't wait for next week and to have you on next week, and we'll talk about it then. But as always, guys, discuss amongst yourselves. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.